I am Tyler, of course, with Andrew. This is Sideline Signals predictions for the ACC conference. We already did the SEC last week. We'll be hitting it with the ACC now as we go through our Power Four preseason predictions. We want to preface this by saying this is the first time we're looking at it. Obviously, we've done some preliminary research, but not fully into it. So we're just giving our best guess, trying to get as close to the standings as we think is possible. Andrew, ACC, we know you love Clemson, but there's some other teams, some wild cards that can kind of come through, wreck it. More similar, we were talking about, to the Big 12. So what are your thoughts for the ACC before we get into the games?
Yeah, it's going to be chaotic. As you said, I'm a big Clemson guy this year. I think they're going to be really good. I think, to me, they're the favorite for the ACC. But looking at it, there's definitely some teams that could play spoiler. SMU got a lot of returners. They had a pretty good run last year, losing to Clemson in the ACC title game. Miami's kind of revamped. They were competitive, obviously, last year with Cam Ward, but now they're getting Carson Beck in, so that's going to be a team to be keeping our eyes out. And then teams like even Louisville and Pitt. Some interesting players returning. Isaac Brown for Louisville, he's going to be an exciting running back to watch. Pitt's got Eli Holstein coming back. So going to be some interesting matchups as we go through. So I'm curious to see how I'll say the upper half of the middle of the pack looks like. But I think we should be pretty comfortable looking at who our champion's going to be.
Yeah, and that upper middle of the pack is kind of what the ACC is known for. A bunch of teams sitting there 6-6, 7-5, maybe 8-4. So we'll see. We're going to go through it now and hit it. All right, so we got our first game, Stanford traveling to Hawaii. Do you think Hawaii gets – well, I guess they'd be the favorite. I haven't looked at the spread, but what are you thinking here? Stanford, obviously not that great, but they are more talented than Hawaii. So where are you leaning here?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Stanford, and I think Hawaii's going to be in this game. It's going to be close. Obviously, anytime you get a Hawaii, it's tough. But I think Stanford's trying to rebuild their program. They've been kind of on that rebuild for a long time, most of our, growing up since Andrew Luck left.
Yeah.
But I think Stanford get the win here. I think it's close, but I'm just going to go with Stanford.
Yeah, I agree with you. Stanford is going to get the W on the road week 0. Now heading into week 1. This was actually the matchup in the bowl game that they played last year. ECU beat NC State. Now it's going to be at NC State. I think NC State's going to get the win this time, get their revenge. This is a rivalry game, but an awesome game for ECU and bragging rights heading into the season. But I believe NC State's more talented.
Yeah, I agree. I would say keep an eye on ECU this season. I think they could be a sneaky team that people will overlook, but they could have a potential postseason berth, especially if they can win a game like this. But I'm going NC State too. I think home field advantage is going to be the difference for them. I just think, again, another close game, but NC State take it.
Yeah, and it'll be exciting right out the gate as a game that maybe you're not focusing on entirely if you're not a fan of either one of these two teams, but certainly one I could see myself turning on, watching like the fourth quarter of it if it's tight there. All right, moving on, we got some easier games for us. We got Duke versus Elon. I think we're going Duke.
Yes.
Wake versus Kennesaw State. Wake Forest, really easy schedule. We're gonna take the W there with Wake Forest. Now we got a tougher one. Georgia Tech going to Colorado. This Colorado team is going to be hard to predict post Shadur, post Travis Hunter, and Georgia Tech is returning everyone. Personally, I'm leaning Georgia Tech, but what are your thoughts on the game?
This is one where I wish I knew who the starting quarterback for Colorado would be, but it's difficult because, like you said, Georgia Tech's having a lot of returning players, especially on offense. Colorado's lost pretty much all of their star power on offense with Shadur, with Travis Hunter, with Jimmy Horn. So, but yeah, I'm going to be interested if Caden Salter's in, or if I've been blanking on his name, but was it Juju? Is that the freshman's name?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm curious to see how that quarterback battle pans out. Obviously, Caden Salter was big at Liberty, transfers in. Is he going to get the nod? I'm not sure. Home field advantage will be good, but I don't know if they're going to be able to stop that triple option for Georgia Tech. So I'll lean with you on that, although I think it is a true toss-up in there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Georgia Tech. I'll go with Georgia Tech. I think that Prime isn't going to have as easy a time, and we saw this at times with Colorado. pretty good team at beating up the bad teams, but they really struggled when they played someone that was really good. And I think that's going to be one of those cases. I'm high on Georgia Tech, not necessarily to win the ACC, but I did predict them to make the championship game. And this is the first step towards doing that on the road in Boulder, getting the W there. It should be a good game, though. Super tight. All right, moving on. Boston College, Fordham. We're going to go Boston College. Louisville versus Eastern Kentucky. We're going Louisville. Pitt versus Duquesne. Pitt. I believe Eastern Texas A&M is that it? Okay, versus SMU. Don't want to disrespect the schools there. Virginia versus Coastal. Is there any shot Coastal wins in your mind?
I think there's a shot, but I'm going to lean on UVA in this one. UVA play notably the easiest schedule, I believe, in the country this year. I think this is one of their tougher games, especially outside of the conference schedule, but I'm going to believe in the Cavaliers here at home. They want to try to make a charge in the ACC with this easy schedule, so I think they get it done here.
Yeah, and this could be one that was similar to when Virginia Tech was kind of going through their mid-phase when they played Old Dominion, and that game was like super back and forth and close, and ODU actually ended up winning the game at least one of those two times that they played. So it'll be interesting, but I'm going with the Cavaliers as well. Tennessee, Syracuse, we already decided this in the SEC video. Tennessee getting the W. Same with Alabama, Florida State. Resounding win by the Crimson Tide. No doubt about it there. And Clemson, LSU, we went with Clemson as well, getting the job done at home. Now we got two former Pac-12, now one Pac-12, one ACC. We got Cal traveling to Oregon State. I'm gonna go with Cal here. I don't think Oregon. You like Oregon State?
I like Oregon State this year for no particular reason,
Okay.
but some of it is bias being from an Oregon-sided family, but I don't see enough quality in Cal. I think Cal is going to be one of those teams that really struggle. And when I was looking through the Week 1 schedule right before we started recording, I kind of penciled in Oregon State to win this game. I think it's going to be close, but Corvallis is tough to play at. I think people forget that, and Cal. They struggled a lot last season. They struggled specifically on the road. So I think going to a rowdy Corvallis with the team that's going to try to compete for that group of 5 spot, I'm taking Oregon State in this one.
I love it. I mean, Cal lost Fernando Mendoza to Indiana and obviously Jade Knott as well to Oklahoma, I believe, unless I'm tripping. Yeah, so those are their two best players by far last year. That they were the guys that were pushing them over the top, at least offensively. And Corvallis is a tough place to play. I wasn't sure where I stood on Oregon State, but I mean, I like it. I have no problem with the Beavers. I used them in College Football 25. Loved it, and they get rowdy out there. So definitely it would be a win for the newly formed Pac-12, getting Oregon State beating one of the teams that left the conference there. South Carolina, Virginia Tech, we decided that was going to be South Carolina there. Now probably the toughest game of Week 1 that we haven't already predicted, Miami versus Notre Dame in Miami. Now, I was leaning Miami. Notre Dame, I said already, I think could have 3 or 4 losses when it's all said or done, but neither team has, it won't be proven until that ball is snapped, until that game starts. So which way you're leaning, or do you agree or disagree with me?
I'm going to agree with you and lean slightly towards Miami in this one. A true toss-up, but when you look at it, two teams that are going to have a lot of change from last season. You compare coaches, I would say right now Freeman currently has a better resume than Mario Cristobal, but then you also look to the experience of your leader, which is your quarterback. And whether or not I believe Carson Beck is the best quarterback or even a great quarterback, you can't dispute that he has the experience. And when you have two guys from Notre Dame competing that are relatively inexperienced on the field, big games like this are going to be difficult. And Miami being at home too, it's going to be on another level for them. So I think it's close, but I'm going to slightly agree with you and edge towards Miami.
All right, so we'll go with Miami. And the key is going to be for Notre Dame all year is, first of all, how good of a coach is Marcus Freeman? We already think he's elite, but he's got to really earn it this year. And then how much will Jeremiah Love get the ball? We could be looking at a team that's handing the ball off 30 times to this guy. and he could be a Heisman frontrunner when it's all said and done for the numbers that he puts up. Obviously, it's going to be hard to top Ashton Genty, especially with the better competition that they play. But they're going to need to lean on that run game, and then when they do lean on that run game, don't be one dimensional, which could also be an issue with a super young quarterback. So we'll take the Hurricanes there. Now, interesting game, not because of the playoff implications or anything like that, but Bill Belichick's first game at UNC playing TCU. This has already been a circus, and none of it has been about football. It's all been about Bill Belichick with the buyout, with the arguments within the program, with his girlfriend. Now we finally get to suit up and play. UNC, they got some talent. Max Johnson's coming back from a brutal injury. I don't know if I'll end up starting, but I assume so. He was a former LSU guy, the lefty. And then TCU has been kind of, in my mind, is kind of an unknown. They lost Chandler Morris. I don't know who they're starting. My bad, but I just don't know. So we could be looking at two pretty mid teams. Do you have an edge in this game?
Yeah, I mean, this is a matchup of two teams in utter chaos.
Yeah.
TCU, I mean, they're playing in the Big 12. Everything is chaotic out there. I agree. I think they are a relatively unknown team, at least for me. I'm not really sure how they're going to do. Again, in matchups like this where I really can't get a grip for it, I just lean on the side of the home team.
Yeah.
I think North Carolina they've been waiting for a good football program. Obviously, they're known as a basketball school, so they're waiting for that dominance. They're going to be fired up about Bill, whether or not all the off-field issues that we've seen throughout the offseason are going to play a role in this season. I think they'll open up the season with a win on TCU. Whether or not it's a good game or not, I think they'll still find a way to win.
Yeah, it could be very ugly, a lot of chaos. But then again, Bill Belichick, he could pull it together. Like all this stuff has nothing to do with football. I can't stress that enough. I can't wait for them to actually play and see him on the sideline. It's going to be surreal, to be honest, as someone that both of us that have only seen him as the Patriots coach for that long of a time. But they get the dub there. JMU and Louisville. JMU did beat North Carolina on the road, but I have a feeling that both of us are going with Louisville here. Okay, not much of an explanation needed there. We'll go with Louisville. Vandy versus Virginia Tech. I believe we went with Virginia Tech for this game. Yeah, we did in the SEC picking there. This is a mid-off right here. We got Boston College on the road at Michigan State. This strikes me as a game that could be 14-10. I lean Michigan State because I like what Aiden Chili's can do. Obviously, pretty bad last year, but I see them picking it up. And Michigan State gets the win at home, excuse me. Illinois versus Duke. This will be an interesting one as well. I like Illinois. I've stated that already, but they got to go on the road. Do you like Duke or do you agree with me?
I'm going Illinois on this one too. Obviously, road game's going to be tough. Duke's going to be a really interesting team for the ACC. Just kind of seeing where they're going to shape up in the standings, but. Illinois, like we said in our hot takes video 2 weeks ago, that it's a sleeper team for me. I think they have playoff potential. This is probably their biggest test outside of Ohio State. Yep. But I think Luke Altmaier is just that much better than Malik Murphy starting for Duke?
Someone transferred Mensa from Tulane transferred to Duke.
Yes.
I forget Malik Murphy transferred. I forget where.
Yeah, it's been that chaotic of an offseason, but that being said, I think Illinois is just going to out-talent them. It'll be a good test for Duke. We'll get to learn more about them for the season, but I think Illinois, on paper, they'll be the better team.
Yeah, this is the year for Brett Bielema. They got to almost win this game handily, in my mind, even though Duke may be a good team, to prove to me that they even have a chance against Ohio State and being that team that we think they are, so they can get it started pretty early there. Into ACC play here, NC State, UVA. I like NC State more. What are you thinking?
I think NC State's going to be a better team. This is one of the tough matchups for UVA in their schedule, but I think NC State on paper is better.
Yeah, so all right, we'll go NC State there. SMU versus Baylor, an in-state rivalry here. I want to go Baylor, but I can't say for sure that we know what SMU is going to look like. I mean, they did make the playoffs last year. It's not like they're some bad team. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm going to go towards SMU. Baylor, they have a lot of hype around them right now. They're returning a decent amount of players on both sides of the ball. Some people think that they are a sneaky team for the Big 12, but the issue is that we just don't know.
Yeah.
And they weren't competitive enough last year to be considered. I think we needed to see like absolute chaos in the final 4 weeks of the season for them to be a contender for the Big 12 title game. So it's all up in the air. You're bringing back experienced players and a team that's unified and able to play together. But at the same time, we don't know if them being able to play together is going to kind of contribute to playing good football. So I think we know what we have with Rhett Lashley and SMU. And they were a playoff team last year. They're going to be hungry. Kevin Jennings coming back. So I think SMU at home will get this win. But it should be a competitive game, or at least hopefully be one.
Yeah, and Kevin Jennings, we'll trust him now. We saw what happened in cold weather, but week 2 it won't be cold in Texas, so we'll go with SMU there. BYU hosts Stanford. I'm good with just saying BYU here. Stanford doesn't impress me. There's nothing about them, and even though Jake Retzloff leaves, BYU is going to have more talent. I think they're going to be more physical, and that's really the key to the game.
Yeah, this is a game where I could see, just like last year with Arizona versus New Mexico, where T-Mac went off, I see Darius Lassiter having a crazy game against Stanford. Stanford, to me, are the Mississippi State of the ACC. I don't see them winning many games.
Yeah,
but,
it's very
yeah.
very strange, of course. One of my least favorite things about the new era of college football is that Stanford is a bottom feeder in the ACC and not the Pac-12. But I digress here. UNC on the road at Charlotte. Do the Fighting Bill Belichick's go 2-0? I think so. All right,
Yeah.
I gotta believe so. All
Yeah,
right.
that's a game to me that's a no question one,
Yeah.
unfortunately for Charlotte. Sorry 49ers fans, you
Yeah.
know.
All right, Pitt hosting Central Michigan. I think I'm confident enough in Pitt just to click them. All right, so we got Cal and Texas Southern. I think we can pencil in Cal for the victory there. Syracuse, UConn, little upper north rivalry, northeast rivalry. Syracuse, I
Yeah,
mean, UConn was,
Syracuse win this.
yeah, okay. UConn made the bowl game last year. It was a pretty big step for Jim Mora, but Syracuse gets the W there. Wake versus Western Carolina. I think we're gonna go Wake. Wake 2-0, baby. 2-0. I haven't seen that kind of success since Sam Hartman was there, and they made the title. Then we got Eastern Texas A&M at Florida State. If Florida State doesn't win this, the season's over. Um, Georgia Tech versus Gardner Webb. Georgia Tech. Clemson hosting Troy. If this is even within 3 scores, Clemson's got a problem. Um, Bethune-Cookman versus Miami. They play this game every year. I feel like Miami gets the dub. NC State going to Wake Forest. Wake Forest first test. Both teams 2-0, I believe. Which way you leaning?
Uh, I don't know if I fully believe in Wake Forest, which is crazy that I'm putting all this faith into NC State, but I'm going with NC State to start the season 3-0 with an away win.
Yeah, I like that too. Wake Forest was just so uncompetitive last year that you'd really have to be bad for me to pick them over Wake Forest, to be honest. Syracuse beats Colgate. Minnesota going to Cal. Now, Minnesota kind of in that upper middle of the Big Ten versus Cal. I like Minnesota here, even though it's on the road.
Me too.
Okay, so Minnesota there. Boston College going to Stanford, literally cross country ACC game. Who you like here? I probably have more faith in Boston College than Stanford here.
Yeah, I'm leaning slightly towards BC. It's going to be interesting, obviously, like you said, the cross country travel, what time that game's going to be played, because jet lag is going to be a thing. But I'm comfortable just to say right now, even though I'm not sure that BC is going to be competitive this year, I think they're going to be more competitive than Stanford.
Yeah, and Bill O'Brien, he'll find a way to get them ready for the West Coast. That's really what we're trusting in here. Now, here's an interesting game. Duke going to Tulane. I see this game going 2 different ways depending on who the quarterback is for Tulane. If Jake Retzloff's able to play and overcome the suspension or not get suspended at all, I think Tulane wins this game, and maybe that's because I don't know much about Duke, but I really like Tulane to be one of those contenders, maybe that Boise State team, like that type team that can go 11-1 given their schedule. But this is probably their biggest hump. So what do you think? What do you
Yeah,
think?
I agree with you. I like Tulane in this game. We don't really know what Duke's going to look like yet. So rolling into week three, that could be a different feel once the season started. But on paper right now, I agree with you. I think if Retzloff does not get suspended for all the off-field issues that we cannot talk about on YouTube, if he plays, then I think Tulane have a serious shot at being a competitive team for the playoff this year. And I think they get a resume win over Duke if he plays.
And it could be a very good game. Obviously, as we stated before, Darius Mensah was the quarterback at Tulane, transfers to Duke, so it's a homecoming for him in week three. Miami versus South Florida. I'm good with Miami here. Virginia Tech versus ODU. This is the game I was kind of talking about before from years past, but I like Virginia Tech here. I don't see enough in ODU to get the upset this time. SMU going to Missouri State. This is a pretty interesting headline here. The only thing I'll say about it before we pick SMU, a playoff team going to a team that just entered the FBS. It's going to be a huge game moneymaker for Missouri State in terms of the stadium and like who goes, but this game is not going to be close. SMU gets the win. Virginia versus William and Mary. We'll go with Virginia. They're 2-1 for Virginia. Good. Now, this is the big game. This is the one. I think we're going to go with Clemson, but this is going to be a really tight game in my mind. Clemson going to Atlanta to play Georgia Tech. Really love Georgia Tech, but we're going Clemson. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going Clemson. I think the biggest question for this game is how is that D line that's been hyped up all offseason going to be able to handle the run? Last year, Clemson's D line struggled a lot at stopping the run. Louisville's a prime example of that. Isaac Brown had a day in their upset win over them. But if they can contain that triple option, they win. And I think their offense is better than Georgia Tech's defense, but Clemson's defense is going to do just enough to stop that Georgia Tech offense.
Yeah, and Clemson really is going to be able to, at least on paper, out talent everyone that they play besides LSU or South Carolina. Those are the two games that really are highlighted there. But they got to make some mistakes, I feel like, and other teams got to capitalize for them to really lose in ACC play. All right, so the backyard brawl here, Pitt, West Virginia. Pitt won last year. It was a great game. It's at West Virginia now in Morgantown unless it's neutral site, but I'm pretty sure it's in Morgantown. Who do you like here? I'm leaning Pitt.
I was leaning Pitt, although it's going to be difficult because Morgantown is not the easiest place to play. But I just don't think this year that they have enough talent compared to Pitt. So I'm good to take Pitt in this game.
All right, so Pitt there. I don't even know what school that is.
I can't
Uh,
see the logo from the screen share, but it could
that's
just
not
be.
Richmond.
I don't think it is. I can pull it up on ESPN. We will keep this part in just to be completely sure, but because that doesn't look like the Spiders logo, but
Yeah, it isn't.
I hit the American Conference. That's insane. Un minuto. Worst case, I'll just cut this out.
Yeah, that's fine.
No, it is Richmond. They're just using a different logo.
Okay, well then Richmond versus UNC. We're gonna go with
Yeah, it
UNC
doesn't
too.
matter. We're taking UNC in that one.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
that was just for conciseness sake there.
Yeah.
Miami hosting Florida. I believe we went with Miami in this game.
Yes, we did.
There, this will be a challenge, but I think we're going Clemson. Syracuse going to Clemson. Clemson gets the dub in Death Valley. NC State versus Duke. Now, this is a game I could see Duke winning. Like, I feel like they all beat each other. That's kind of how the ACC works.
I
I
was going
don't
to
think
say the exact same thing. I think the cracks begin to form at NC State. They start off 3-0. They're feeling good, but Duke kind of get their bounce back from a tough loss against Tulane the week before.
there you go. Virginia hosting Stanford. This is probably going to be a below mid off, but I like Virginia here. I
Yeah.
do. I like. All right, so Virginia 3-1. Sweet. Cal traveling to San Diego State. San Diego State feisty, but I'm definitely leaning Cal here on the road. There we go. Kent State versus FSU. Another game that if FSU loses, it's over. Um, Temple at Georgia Tech. We're going Georgia Tech. Wofford at Virginia Tech. We're going Virginia Tech. The battle for the Iron Skillet, SMU at TCU. I believe we can go SMU here pretty handily. All right. Interesting out of conference game here. North Carolina traveling to the bounce house. Scott Frost is back at UCF. What do you think? I'm good. I'm almost good with putting UCF just because I don't know what UNC is going to look like. But I also don't know what UCF is going to look like either. They lost a lot. What are your thoughts?
As much as I have zero faith in Scott Frost, I feel like this is the one of those bananas games where it is high scoring, it's intense. It's the game that you're like, why are we putting this one on? But it's the most entertaining of the weekend. I love it. I think UCF is fun to watch at home when they're playing good football. Uh, I'm going to go with UCF in it. I think it's going to be kind of an upset, so to speak, but I like UCF at home. But like I said, I don't know if I have faith in college Bill Belichick yet. I know I don't really have faith in Scott Frost, but I feel like this is one of those games where it's just gonna nobody knows what's gonna happen, but I like UCF.
Nostalgia to that national championship team, and they get the win against another Power Five at home. Bowling Green, got to go see that field over the weekend. Going to Louisville, I think we're going to say Louisville gets the W here. Now, this will be an interesting one. Florida State going to Virginia. What do you think? I feel like Virginia doesn't go 4-1, if that
No,
makes sense.
I agree. And as little faith that I have in Florida State and my belief that Florida State are going to be horrible again this year and that Mike Norvell will get fired, I don't think UVA have
Yeah.
the talent just yet. And I think that's one of those to me where if Florida State lose, they collapse, but I don't think they're going to be at the point of collapse yet by week 4 when they're or week 5 when they're taking on UVA. So I'm good with Florida State on the road.
Okay, so they're 3-1. Who knows now? It's almost scary. Isn't that more wins or just as many wins as they had last year? We could get bit there. Another cross country trip here. Cal going to BC. I Boston College.
Yeah, I'm feeling more
Yeah.
BC. That's a weird matchup. I don't have faith in either of them, but you go with the home team on those cross countries more likely than not.
Yeah. All right. So Duke traveling to Syracuse. I like Syracuse more than Duke, so I'm good going Syracuse in the Carrier Dome. You
Yeah,
agree?
I agree, especially at the Carrier Dome. I think it's going to be an interesting one for that middle of the pack kind of battle to see who gets the superiority there. But yeah, I'm good with Syracuse. Going to be a fun one to watch, though.
Syracuse there. Georgia Tech going to Wake. I got Georgia Tech handily. I think they're just the better team.
Yeah, Wake's going to have some momentum from their relatively decent start to the season, but I think Georgia Tech win that game.
Okay. Louisville traveling to Pitt.
That's a
Another
tough one.
toss up.
That is
Yeah.
that is a toss up if I've ever seen one. I'll give you
Let's
my thoughts. I'm thinking Isaac Brown, great game. Not enough though. I think Pitt take it at home.
let's see. Yeah, Louisville would have been all right. So whoever wins this game is starting out 4-0. I'm good with Pitt. We saw what happens when they went undefeated to start last year as well. So a similar start there, 4-0. Virginia Tech going to NC State, another one where it's a coin flip in my mind. Uh, Kyron Drones makes one better play. Virginia Tech wins in my mind.
Yeah, I'm gonna defer to your judgment on this one. I don't think I could comfortably pick a winner.
Okay, so Virginia Tech, we're going 4-1, has that loss to South Carolina. Good start for them. San Jose State going to Stanford. Now, San Jose State lost Nick Nash, which was the huge best player in possibly program history for them. How will they bounce back? Stanford is going to be bad, but they're at home. Stanford, it's a
I'm gonna
rival.
lean on Stanford now for now, but like I said, this is a week 5 matchup, so it would be so
Yeah, that's
much
the
easier to
key.
kind of give a prediction if we knew what San Jose State was going to look like post Nick Nash. But yeah, for now, I'm going to put Stanford.
Yeah, Stanford there. BC going to Pitt. I like BC better than, excuse me, I like Pitt better than BC there, especially at home.
Yeah, I agree. I think Pitt win that.
All right, Duke going to Cal. I feel like we got to give Duke some sugar here because what are they at? With that win, they'll be 3-3. That's about where I thought. That's
Yeah,
about where.
I'm good to give Duke that win. I feel like I said, I'm not big on Cal, so I think Duke should win that game.
Now we got a coaching matchup that I never thought I would see. Dabo Sweeney going on the road to face Bill Belichick there. I think Clemson wins handily just based off talent, and I think Dabo is going to be the better college coach. Maybe not better coach overall. Why is it not letting me click on it? Well, all right, there you go. All right, there you go. It finally worked. There, Clemson gets the win. Miami going to Florida State. Not enough faith in either one of these teams, but I have more faith in Miami to be pretty good, right?
I
Yeah,
agree.
okay.
Yes.
All right, so Miami starts out 5-0. UVA going to Louisville. Louisville just lost to Pitt. I'm I'm thinking Louisville here. I think they're
Yeah.
the better team.
I take Louisville in this one too. Again, I don't think at this point UVA have enough talent. While they have the easy schedule, I don't think they can rely on just the fact that they have an easy schedule. Louisville's the more talented team.
Yeah, so Louisville 4-1 there. Syracuse goes to SMU. This could be one that I could see SMU dropping, but I don't know what Syracuse looks like yet. I know Fran Brown is cooking up, but I don't know exactly what.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts?
I kind of want to take Syracuse in this. I think this
Okay.
is one of those where it's a tough matchup. SMU have been good in those ACC tougher matchups from last season. I think this is one of those where it's going to be close. Like I said last year, SMU always found a way out of those close games, whether it be by luck. I think of Duke last year. I believe it was a couple missed field goals or
Yes.
PATs for Duke. Um, I think it's going to be a very close matchup, but I think this is one that just goes, the luck goes to Syracuse.
All right, I like that. I like that a lot actually. And we saw that both with Miami and SMU. It was like, oh, they get out on one play. And when you rely on that to win games, it usually comes back to bite you when you're not as good or not as talented, which seems to be the case with SMU this year. Wake traveling to Virginia Tech. I'm good with just jotting down Virginia Tech win there. Campbell, NC State. We're going NC State there. Clemson going to Boston College. Maybe the first half is tight. I could see something like that, but Clemson gets the win on the road. Pitt going to Florida State could be a statement for Florida State that we're back, but I don't think so. I don't have enough
Pitt,
trust.
Pitt win that game. They find a
Yeah.
way, even if it's close.
Virginia Tech versus Georgia Tech, the Tech game. I think I there's a name for the rivalry. I forget what it is, but we'll go with the Techs. Um, I like Georgia Tech better.
Me
That's
too. I think they just out talent Virginia Tech. While they're having a solid season comparatively for Virginia Tech, I think Georgia Tech's the better football team.
and we've seen them come up short in games where they play at level opponents with Virginia Tech there. Stanford, SMU, I think we're good with SMU there. NC State, Notre Dame could be interesting, but I like Notre Dame a lot better, especially in South Bend.
Yeah, it's make or break for NC State. I think Notre Dame beat them. Marcus Freeman is just going to do his thing. While obviously we have them losing to Miami earlier in the season, I think once they get kind of tuned in, new quarterback, all that new system of players coming through, not necessarily the system itself, but once they got adjusted, like you look last year, they lose early to NIU. They got adjusted, they got comfortable, and they dominated. I think that's similar this season. Notre Dame's going to beat NC State.
And we're going to talk a lot about Notre Dame's defense, the missing pieces that they had from last year's national championship team. But it'll be interesting to see how much of an impact Riley Leonard leaving has on this team. I know it is the quarterback position, and obviously the spotlight's there. But you talk about a guy that was pretty like average in terms of a passer, and he got them to the title. So it'll be interesting to see. But we got them getting the dub. Marcus Freeman gets the W there. Wake and Oregon State. I love this, like a week 7 out of conference matchup on the road for both teams. Obviously, Oregon State's in the Pac-2 right now, but we're going Beavers.
Yeah, I'm taking the Beavers in this one. Again, close road games, you kind of favor the home team, especially if it's a long cross-country travel. So I'm taking the Beavers in that one.
Same deal with the team going west, UNC at Cal. I like UNC here specifically, but it is kind of a toss-up.
Yeah, I don't think I believe in Cal yet.
Yeah, I don't know.
Cross-country road trip, but you look at the talent, I think UNC is more talented. Again, it could be almost like Miami versus Cal last year, where it's really close. Not necessarily as bad of a choke from Cal, but I think UNC win.
Yeah, you took the two best players by far on that roster and they went elsewhere. And that's just going to be how it is. They're a victim to the transfer portal. there. So UNC gets the win. Louisville traveling to Miami. Does Miami stumble? I could see them stumbling against a team like Louisville with a pretty good run game. Miami does have talent on the other side, but they seem to fold in games where they're going to be favored and maybe even at home. Um, what are you thinking? Are you good with Miami or you agree with me a bit?
It's tough because I do agree with you, but I don't know if Louisville have enough overall talent to stop what Miami's bringing. So that's going to be the question is this the one true game that they fall in that seems typical of any Mario Cristobal team? You know, what the hell? I'll go with it. I'll take
All
Louisville
right.
in this game for the upset. Again, I keep saying his name, but Isaac Brown, if he can get loose, they're a hard team to beat. So while I believe Miami might be the better team, well, are the better team, I think this is one where they get punched in the mouth early and just aren't able to crawl back from that hole.
And we've seen that, and it's really interesting. Obviously, for Cristobal's tenure at Oregon, that his teams don't seem to respond very well. And we saw them come back, yes, against Cal from that 28 points down, but Cal choked just as much as Miami took advantage. So it'll be interesting to see how they do when they eventually face adversity.
Yeah, and
Uh,
even in that matchup from last year, Louisville were the better team in that game,
yeah.
but turnovers cost them. Fumbles on offense and Tyler Shuck turning over the ball was ultimately the difference in why Miami ended up winning. So if they can keep it a clean game, they should be able to have some success.
I agree with you there. Another one, Pac-2 going to ACC, Washington State at UVA. If you wanted to take UVA here, I wouldn't mind it, but I like Washington State a little better, slightly better.
Okay, I'll side with you because I was leaning more towards UVA, mainly because I haven't done a lot of research into Washington State yet, so I'm not sure. I'm more of an Oregon State guy this year for the Pac-2. But if you're confident in them winning this matchup, I'm good with you picking Washington State over UVA.
Now they're likely going to be starting a true freshman. He is pretty talented, but they obviously lost John Mateer. Their running game is going to be what carries them for the most part, and their defense is just flat out not very good. I could see this game being like 48-42, and whoever has the ball last kind of wins. But yeah, I like Washington State. I've always been drawn to them. Not that this influenced me at all, but their logo. I love Washington State's logo for no reason. I just it pleases my eyes here. All right, so rematch of the ACC title game, SMU on the road to Clemson. I personally think Clemson beats them by a lot more than they did on the compared to that game-winning field goal from last year, especially at home.
Yeah, I agree. Clemson at home, they're going to be hard to beat just in any point this season. I'm going to take Clemson. Although, like I said, I want to see how that D line handles the run. That's definitely a team last year. They no longer have Brashard Smith at SMU. He went to the draft, but whoever fills in that gap for Brashard Smith, I think Kevin Jennings can run. So I'm curious to see how they're able to handle the run. But I think Clemson win that comfortably.
Yeah, same exact keys from me there. Georgia Tech traveling to Duke. I could see Georgia Tech slipping up, but I do not have them slipping up. What do you think?
I was going to take Duke in this game.
Yeah,
Not for any necessary rhyme or reason, other than the fact that Georgia Tech does tend to slip up in games
yeah,
like
they
this.
do.
And I think, especially with it being at Duke, I think that's going to favor them. Obviously, anytime you play at home, you should be relatively favored. But yeah, I just see this as a typical game where they slip up. Maybe we get some knocks because we're at the point in the season where Jamal Haynes and Haynes King have run the ball 3 million times in that offense. There's going to be bangs and bruises and fatigue. And I think that's one where Duke's just going to be a little more well rested and more recovered and find a way to get a win.
All right, I'm good with that one. Heartbreaking for me in the ACC standings, but I mean that is the kind of team that they've tended to field at least of recent. Florida State going to Stanford. Are we really going to have Florida State with 4 wins? I think so. I
Yeah,
think so.
I don't think Stanford find a way here.
Wow, if they make it to bowl eligible, is Mike Norvell keeping his job if they go 6-6, you think?
Maybe, but I don't think he should because
Yeah,
again, a program should not be changing their standards based on their historical
or so.
success.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's tough times, but you look at that, Florida State is a pivotal program in just the overall history of college football. and they've been competitive our entire lives. And so we're sitting at the fact now, and are we going to see a program that was once competitive? We're 2 years removed from being, undefeated and winning the ACC. Are they okay with now being 6-6 and
I don't
saying
think so.
that's good enough for us? I don't think so. So I think if they go under 500 or exactly at 500, I think that they should fire Mike Norvell.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, and obviously we'll see what happens. He could be a candidate for a midseason firing if they were to lose this kind of game. I know we've said that with multiple games on their schedule, but that's kind of where it is with Florida State. Pitt traveling to Syracuse, kind of a toss-up game here. Do we start to see Pitt skid a little bit? I mean, it's at the Carrier Dome. I bet it's going to be like a Friday night game that just strikes me as one of those kind of games. Complete toss-up in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. It's a complete toss-up. I mean, this game was chaos last year, if you remember. Kyle McCord threw what, like 5 interceptions?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we
Uh,
had Syracuse. We
yeah.
both picked Syracuse in
Yeah,
that
that was
game.
a game that we both did take Syracuse in. So this time I'm gonna flip it. I'm gonna ride with the Pitt boys.
Okay.
I just think they're more complete, but at the Carrier Dome, hard to play at. Syracuse kind of proved that last year, but I think Pitt will be more comfortable this season.
Yeah, I don't think we could, even though it's a different quarterback in the system, I don't think we could just because that was the worst take of our entire season last year. I actually remember saying Kyle McCord would have a great game in that game, and then he throws 5 interceptions, really shut me up there. UConn going to Boston College. UConn will be decent, but I give the edge to BC.
I agree.
Okay, so Boston College there, Cal at Virginia Tech. I think we're good with going with Virginia Tech there. Yep. SMU at Wake. I think we're going SMU, right?
Yep.
Boston College at Louisville. Go Louisville, right?
Yep.
They could be the team
Slight
six and
edge to
one in
Louisville.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Syracuse at Georgia Tech. Another toss-up game. I like Georgia Tech. I keep saying
Yeah,
that.
the big question in just how we've had it playing out is how is Georgia Tech going to handle, are they going to collapse after losing to Duke the week before? Syracuse, same thing. They're bouncing back out. Tough loss to Pitt. I'm good to give it to Georgia Tech just because it's going to be close. But again, when you don't know, roll with the home team.
Yep. Home team there. Stanford at Miami. I think we're going Miami there. UVA at UNC. Now, we gave them a couple losses on the tighter ones there. Do you see any difference there? Are we rolling UNC?
Difficult to say. Again, you got to see how each team's handled their losses. So this one's kind of hard as we're at week 9 now. I don't know. I mean, I'm good to just go UNC because
Yeah. Okay.
we don't truly know if UVA's got enough talent.
Okay. NC State and Pitt. Let me check these records. So Pitt would be 7-1 with a win. NC State 4-4. Obviously 6-2 and 5-3. I could see Pitt losing this game.
Yeah, I agree. The highs of the last few weeks, getting some sneaky wins against difficult conference opponents at home, just overlooking NC State, they're going to be quiet, but they're going to be
Yeah.
there. And yeah, I agree. I think NC State can find a way to win this.
Okay, so UNC going to Syracuse, another one where it's like there. I think this is one of those advantage to the home team games.
I agree.
Uh,
I was going to say, give me Syracuse in this one.
yeah, Syracuse there. UVA at Cal.
Give me Cal in this one. I think UVA
Okay.
finally start to slip up.
All
Yeah,
right,
Cal,
Cal
Cal,
there.
Cal need a conference win. They're at home. They need something to keep their 5 fans who are coming to games excited. So I think they'll find a way to win that.
Yeah, I think Stanford may be the only one that doesn't get a conference win. I think you're right there. Duke traveling to Clemson. I think we're going Clemson here.
Yep.
Wake going to FSU. FSU with 5 wins. Or do you like? Yeah,
I like Florida State more in this one. I think it comes down to how Florida State's handling the season. If they lose the week prior in heartbreaking fashion, this might be one where we're looking and adjusting, being like, okay, maybe Wake Forest find a way to win. But with where they're at for the season, I think they just out talent Wake Forest.
yeah, and this could be ugly. Obviously, it depends on how Thomas Castellanos is and if he can back up his trash talk, which he's been doing a lot of. But it kind of seems like he's going to be somewhere in between backing it up and completely folding. So that's about where I have Florida State as well. So 5-3 there, but like not a strong 5-3, I'll say. Georgia Tech traveling to NC State. I could see either team winning this game, obviously, but I like NC State a bit more here,
I was gonna
and
say
it's
this
gonna
feels like
knock
a
Georgia Tech out.
this feels like a chaos game. So similar to kind of how weeks of the Big 12 went, where all the teams that should be the front runner for the games would lose, and then everybody's just kind of middling it out in their conference. So yeah, I'm gonna go with NC State at home to win that game.
There we go. Two 6-3 teams there. Louisville right now only has one loss. If we, as of right now, they're 6-1. So at Blacksburg, I believe this is a night game as well.
Oh, if it's a night game, I'm taking Virginia Tech.
Yeah,
I'm
let's,
putting
yeah.
I'm putting the house on Virginia Tech. If they're two teams that are fighting for top of the ACC and it's nighttime in Blacksburg, Enter Sandman is going to cause earthquakes across Virginia. So yeah, give me Virginia Tech in that game.
A sneaky 7-2 for Virginia Tech right now. It seems like these two teams may knock each other out in this week or not. The loser is knocked out, I'll say. Miami at SMU. I wish we had this matchup last year. I really did wish that that was scheduled. This year, it'll probably be an eliminator for the playoff in terms of making the ACC title. What are you thinking? Are you leaning any sort of way?
I'm leaning Miami because of experience. Obviously, Rhett Lashley now has playoff experience.
Yeah, but
I
he's
think Mario Cristobal knows what it's like to be in these tougher games a lot more than Rhett Lashley does. And I just think ultimately, while they're at home, I think SMU is going to crumble under some of that pressure. And I think Miami just have more experience in those kind of situations.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I agree with you there. And SMU, I guess it would be a disappointment. I don't really know what a disappointing season is for them, but 6-3 there. Miami 7-1. Pitt traveling to Stanford. I think we're going Pitt. Uh, Notre Dame at Boston College. I think we could safely say Notre Dame there. SMU at Boston College. It's going to be freezing. Now that's the only problem there, but I like SMU. I think they're a more talented team.
Agreed.
All right. Cal at Louisville. I think Louisville bounces back and keeps themselves in contention for the ACC title here. FSU gets a check with reality in this game. I really think so.
I
Uh,
agree.
they get steamrolled in Clemson. Syracuse at Miami. This game was the game that kind of unfolded them last year. Could it happen again?
If Miami ride the high of their win the week prior for too long, then yes. But I think this might be the year where Cristobal learned from his mistakes of riding the high after a big win. I think Miami will find a way to win it.
Okay, I'm good with that one. They're 8-1, so it's right as of right now, it's setting up Clemson, Miami, ACC title game there. Stanford going to UNC. I think we already stated how we feel about Stanford, and UNC gets to bowl eligible in the first year of Belichick. Now we got Wake at UVA. I like UVA just because they're at home.
I agree. I think this is a pretty even matchup of mediocrity in the
Yeah.
ACC, and so I'm going to give it to UVA at home.
UVA has a chance to become bowl eligible in their last two games there. Duke going to UConn. I think Duke's the better team, but I think it'll be close.
Yep. It'll be closer than you think, but yeah, Duke find a way to win it.
Clemson at Louisville could be a trap game, but I don't feel confident enough in Louisville to beat Clemson there.
I think the D line does their job for Clemson this season, and they get the win. Everybody's going to be pointing to it, being like, "Oh, last year was the upset. Watch it again." But I think
Yeah.
Clemson will learn from that and get the win.
Georgia Tech going to Boston College. I like Georgia Tech better as a team structurally, even though it's on the road there. I think Andrew agrees. So there we go. UVA at Duke. I'm thinking Duke.
Yeah, give me Duke in this. UVA is just this is where we finally see kind of the strung out lack of quality.
Now, if you got okay, so all right. So this would be to get Florida State to bowl eligibility. Virginia Tech needs to win the game to stay in the ACC race at Tallahassee. Fans would be in the stands if they were 5-4 up to this point. I think it would be almost back to something. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm taking Florida State in this one.
Okay.
I don't think we see Virginia Tech get to 8 wins this week. I think this is where we kind of I don't know what the remainder of their schedule is looking like, but this is where we see kind of the drop off from Virginia Tech, where there's a lot of hype behind them. There was last year, but this is where, like you said, when Florida State takes on Clemson, I think this is going to be a bit of a reality check for Virginia Tech. They get bowl eligible, they're having a great season, but you're not quite there yet.
Yeah, and that's usually where they are. They've only been able to push over that hump a couple of times in the last 20 years or so. So that's on par for them. For Florida State, bowl eligible. Imagine they storm the field after a game like this. I like it's so sad, but I could see it happening. If they were to win this game. NC State going to Miami. Miami is at 8-1 now. What do you think? This could be a trap game.
It could be. And as much as I'd love to say NC State, I just don't see it happening. I think Miami's just going to outclass them. Again, we're starting to see some of the cracks in some of these teams. And I think when it comes down to it late in the season, a lot of the time it's just talent over schemes.
Okay, so Miami there gets the win at home. UNC traveling to Wake Forest. UNC going for 7 wins.
I was going to say, give me Wake Forest and just
Okay.
what is a random game.
Yeah, I
I
like that.
think they're riding the high. Belichick's excited of getting bowl eligible in his first season. Wake Forest hasn't really done much all season, lack of quality, but they're at home, and it's just kind of like a. I see it as like a noon kickoff, and it's just what's going on at Wake Forest, and then just a sloppy game of distracted play from UNC, and they drop it.
Yeah, yeah, very similar to like the JMU game as I mentioned last year, where it's just like a lazy game and they kind of sleepwalk through it all. Notre Dame on the road at Pitt. Now this looks like a trap game. I mentioned this when I was talking about Notre Dame, but I honestly think Notre Dame beats them. Do you agree? Yeah.
I agree. I'm gonna go with Notre Dame. I was just curious to hear what you had for justification for it, but yeah, I think Notre Dame's gonna win the game. I just think they're better.
Yeah, I think Jeremiah Love is just they have the better rushing attack. I think Marcus Freeman does very well, and that defense steps up and locks down Holstein as they've struggled later in the year. Um, 2 more games away from being destined to the same fate that they had last year there. I also for there's other games that I see Notre Dame losing. That's my other point there. Florida State on the road to NC State. I like NC State here.
Me too.
NC State. Cal at Stanford. This is the big game. What do you got?
Absolute mid off. There's going to be about 20
Yeah.
people watching in the stands and at home combined. You know what? What the hell? Give me Stanford at home. They'll find a way to get a home win just for the fans. Again, they'll get 2 season tickets sold off of it. Everyone will go home being happy. If they win a conference game, we're
A
all like,
pair of
we wanted to
three.
watch this, but here we are.
Yeah, the two California teams playing in the East Coast Conference both have 3-8 records there. Stanford wins the rivalry there. Duke at UNC, a big game for Belichick here at home. His first Duke, Tobacco Road. I know that's the basketball term, but for the sake of it, Tobacco Road rivalry there. Who you got? Are you leaning any sort of way here? This is kind of a toss-up.
I kind of don't care, to be completely honest. I know it's a big basketball rivalry. I don't think I'm gonna even keep my eye on this game. And it's gonna be interesting, of course, but
Yeah,
the only thing that's really appealing so far to UNC is the fact that Bill Belichick's there. And I think the sideshow kind of is gonna lose its charm if they're at 6-4 or 7-4. It's not gonna be a game that's gonna turn any heads. So if Duke wins, I don't really care. I'm not gonna lie. So if you want to go UNC, I'm fine with that.
yeah, let's just go UNC there. Hey, at least you're honest about it. And I assume that many fans will agree with you by the time this game gets pulled up in week 13. Pitt on the road to Georgia Tech, kind of like for seeding in the ACC now. What do we have? The 7-3. If they lose this game, they're on a four game skid. I could see it happening though. I could
I
see
could
this
see Georgia
happen.
Tech winning this game.
Yeah, I think Georgia Tech gets the win there. I'll get to 8 wins, very similar to last year. Louisville versus SMU. or like
I'm gonna ride with SMU. I think
okay.
it's tough. Again, can they contain the run? That's gonna be the big question for pretty much any team playing Louisville next season. But at home, I just think again, you see cracks start to form in programs. Louisville again, good but not quite there yet. SMU more experienced, kind of late in the stretch. I think they find the way to win it.
Well, there you have it there. SMU gets the W. Miami to Blacksburg. It'll probably be a night game again. The winner is in third place, I want to say, or maybe even second place. If Miami wins, they're probably in the ACC title. If Virginia Tech wins, they have another shot at it. Um, this is going to be tough for the Hurricanes. It's going to be cold too, compared
Yeah,
to what they're used to.
it's going to be difficult, but I think unfortunately for Virginia Tech, this is one of those games where it's always that top 25 matchup going to Blacksburg. Everybody's hyping it up as the
Yeah,
upset. I think Miami's just going to find a way to win. I don't think it's going to be like last year too, where Miami went off of a bad call on a Hail
yeah,
Mary. I
yeah.
think
That
Miami
was.
will win it because, like I said, cracks are forming. Virginia Tech is good, but not quite there yet.
There you have it. I can't argue with that one. Syracuse going to Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame wins this one. I'll give the edge to them there. Furman, Clemson, in real SEC fashion. Clemson schedules
Yeah,
Furman in week 13. They get the W. New team, Delaware, facing off against Wake Forest. I like Wake there. I don't think there's much of an argument.
yeah.
Georgia going to Georgia Tech. I don't think it really matters, to be honest. Georgia
Yeah.
wins this
Yeah,
one, or we
we
already
took
had that.
Georgia in that one.
Yeah. Florida in this one. I believe we took Louisville in this game against Kentucky.
We
And
did.
then we took South Carolina beating Clemson as really the surprise there. Clemson's only loss on the season. BC versus Syracuse. I like Syracuse better.
Me too.
Yeah, Syracuse better there. They get to a bowl game. SMU on the road at Cal. If they're jet lagged, then Cal's got a chance, but I don't really think they do. So SMU finishes 9-3. Wake Forest at Duke. I like Duke better. Do you get
Yeah, I
Duke there?
agree.
This was actually a game. Didn't Pittsburgh or Pitt beat Miami in like the last week of the year, 3, 4 years ago, the Malik Rozier days when
Yeah.
they had a chance. Is there any chance something similar to that happens,
I
or
think
do they
there
lose
is a chance,
five
but
straight?
again, it's all momentum. I don't know. Again, I think Pitt win this game slightly towards what I'm leaning on because again, Mario Cristobal loves to overlook late
Yeah,
games.
this would be
This
the game.
this is one of those games that he tends to lose. And Pitt, not necessarily playing for anything. They made their bowl game and they got you know, they don't have title berth, but they could potentially play spoiler for Miami. I think absolutely at home, this is one that they could win. So if you want
Okay.
to put them, I'm good with it. But if you have any other rationale to take Miami, go for it.
I like it. I really don't. I don't really believe in Carson Beck either as someone that can be clutch. I know he was at times at Georgia, but it didn't really sell me. So I'm good with taking Pitt there as they get to 8 wins. Miami will be 10-2, but I believe they're still in. They gotta have the second best record in the ACC there. UNC versus NC State.
I'm
I
taking
like it.
NC State. Home
Yeah.
true natural rivalries, you tend to favor the home team more likely than not.
Now with this one, Tech, UVA, I think we're going Tech,
Yeah,
right?
I'm
Yeah.
taking Tech. UVA almost never win this rivalry game. I don't see it happening this year. I almost went to the game last year, but I didn't mainly because my Virginia Tech buddies didn't end up going to the game. So, but it's always a fun time. But Virginia Tech historically are the better team. They're the better program record wise this year. They're going to win the game.
There's a reason why UVA always storms the field when they beat Virginia Tech, and it's because it doesn't really happen often
Yeah, sorry,
there. So
Brody.
yeah, yeah. Notre Dame going to Stanford. I don't think this is a question. Notre
Not at
Dame
all.
gets the win there. So now we head on down to our standings here. Actually, we didn't do this with the SEC, but in week 15, it shows you. So it would be Miami versus Clemson in Carolina for the title. This is a look at the standings here. Based on this, if Clemson wins the ACC, and I think we think that they will, right? There's only one ACC team making the playoff.
Potentially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
depending, well, based on the SEC, that the SEC would be a bid stealer, whether that be LSU, Texas A&M, or one of those in there.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see. Well, because the big question too, I think that it'll ultimately come down to because I would take Clemson over Miami in the ACC
Yeah,
title
me too.
game. That would drop Miami down to 3 losses, and are you going to punish a team who's 10-3? Are you going to punish them for making it to their title game and losing? That's going to be the conversation. So yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. That Pitt Miami game last week of the regular season is going to be a very
Huge.
important game for Miami to try to win.
Yeah, and it'll be very similar, ironically, to the SMU situation where they did lose in the ACC title, but they did have, like you said, that one less loss. So if Miami goes into this game 11-1, they're in, without a doubt. But if they are to lose to Pitt that last week, as we have predicted, uh, then they'll have to win the whole conference probably to make it, based on resume, based on what we think for other conferences. And you look right here, you got SMU 9-3. Then we got one, two, three, four, five, 8-4 teams, two 7-5s, two 6s and 6s, and then Boston College, UVA, Wake, Stanford, and Cal not making a bowl game there. One of the more chalkier conferences. I know we said there's a lot of toss-ups, but not necessarily huge toss-up games. Kind of shook out the way that exactly that I would have thought there. No surprises there. So I believe we're on to the Big Ten now, and that'll get pretty spicy. A lot of huge games there, whether it be Oregon, Penn State. Obviously we already predicted it, but Texas, Ohio State, week one, all those different rivalries. It'll be a lot of fun to do, and we'll get back to you there. Any final thoughts, Andrew, before we end off?
Not much for obviously the content we just covered. Obviously, this is going to be another long video. So thank you for our listeners if you listen to the whole thing and watch us do our predictions. But yeah, ACC is one of those not really talked about conferences, but I like going through this exercise. It's good to kind of see how we feel about certain teams. So I'm just happy to get it through it. I'm excited to go towards the Big Ten and see how that shakes up. But yeah, no, just fired up as always.
Yeah, and it'll be a blast either way. If you guys enjoy this, please remember to like, subscribe, save, and share it with your friends. We're on TikTok and YouTube, obviously, Sideline Signal. So, with that being said, I am Tyler. That is Andrew. Thank you guys for listening to us, and please check in next video. Thank you so much.